Imagine your motorcycle dying on a desolate Montana highway, then waking up to realize you're the one who's truly stranded. Forever. In June of 2021, that's exactly what happened to Daniel O'Neill Baker. Dan's motorcycle broke down near the tiny community of Potomac, a place so small that the bar and the country store are its main landmarks. Within days, his bike was found abandoned, his helmet carefully set beside it with the keys still inside. His phone was missing. His wallet was discovered miles away near the University of Montana campus, but without his license. And Dan himself? He was gone. This wasn't just anyone. Dan had a family waiting for him back in Helena, including a daughter preparing for her own wedding. He had called his girlfriend Amy, promising he was making his way home. And then, just like that, all contact stopped. How does a man vanish between a rural roadside and a bustling college town, leaving behind only scattered fragments of his life? Why did his final call to Amy end so abruptly, and what explains his wallet being found across town the very next day? Stories like this one leave me asking, how does a man simply vanish in broad daylight, in a place where so many people pass through? And what happened in those last calls that suggest he was trying to find his way home? This is the story of Daniel O'Neill Baker, a disappearance filled with unanswered questions and heartbreaking uncertainty. Dan was born on August 27, 1976. By the time he disappeared, he was 44 years old, 5'9", about 180 pounds, with graying brown hair and green eyes. But those statistics don't tell his story. Dan was living in Helena, Montana, where he worked steadily to support himself and those close to him. He wasn't drifting or detached. He was tied to people around him. He had a girlfriend, Amy, who spoke to him in his final days, and he had children who expected him to be part of their lives. In June of 2021, with his daughter's wedding just days away, a milestone no parent wants to miss, Dan was supposed to be there. Local reporting suggests Dan grew up in the Fairfield area, but Helena was where he had built his day-to-day life. He was seen as dependable, someone who had people counting on him. He wasn't known for running away from his responsibilities. One thing that stood out about Dan was his love of the open road. Like many in Montana, he found a kind of freedom on his motorcycle. That bike wasn't just a machine, it was part of his lifestyle. It gave him space to think, to enjoy sweeping landscapes of Montana, and to live with a sense of independence. Ironically, it was the very motorcycle that would sit at the heart of his disappearance. To understand why his case feels so unsettling, it helps to remember this. Dan wasn't a man without roots. He had a family waiting at home, a partner who cared for him, and a daughter expecting to see him walk through the door on her wedding day. But that's what makes what happened next so difficult to comprehend. Dan's story took its sudden turn in early June of 2021. On Tuesday, June 8th, he was traveling on his motorcycle along Highway 200, not far from Missoula. Somewhere along that route, his bike broke down. Stranded on the side of the highway, Dan began walking. The summer sun beating down on the endless ribbon of asphalt, dust kicking up under his boots. A passing driver eventually stopped and offered him a ride, dropping him off in the small community of Potomac. Later, Dan's motorcycle was found abandoned near Cully's Bar and Country Store in Potomac. His helmet was placed beside it, and inside that helmet were his keys. The bike itself showed only minor damage, nothing that explained why he would simply leave it behind. By then, though, Dan was already separated from his phone. He had accidentally left it behind in the vehicle that gave him a ride into town. The next day, Wednesday, June 9th, he borrowed another phone to call his girlfriend Amy. He reassured her that he was okay and told her he had arranged for another ride. The following day, Thursday, June 10th, Dan called Amy again, this time saying he was headed towards the Poverello Center in Missoula, a local shelter and resource center. The two of them were working out how he would get back to Helena in time for his daughter's wedding that weekend. But during this call, something changed. Dan realized that his wallet was missing. Amy could hear him in the background asking people nearby if they had seen it. Then, without warning, the call cut off. That was the last time Amy, or anyone, ever spoke with him. On Friday, June 11th, Dan's wallet was found in a bush near the University of Montana campus. It wasn't intact. His driver's license was missing, though his insurance card remained. That small detail was enough for the finder to notify his employer, but it did nothing to explain how the wallet ended up there, or why the most important piece of identification had been removed. The next day, Saturday, June 12th, was supposed to be a joyful milestone for his family. It was his daughter's wedding day. Dan had spoken of coming home for it, but he never arrived. 2 days later, on Monday, June 14th, Dan O'Neill Baker was officially reported missing to the Missoula Police Department. From a simple motorcycle breakdown, the chain of events had grown more unsettling at every turn. A stranded bike with its keys left behind, a lost phone, 2 hurried phone calls, a missing wallet, and then complete silence. When a disappearance happens as suddenly and as strangely as Dan's, theories emerge. But each one comes with its own troubling questions. The first, and perhaps the most unsettling theory, is foul play. Consider the timing. Dan's final call with Amy cuts off mid-sentence as he searches for his wallet. Just 1 day later, that wallet is found in a bush near the University of Montana campus. The license missing. The insurance card left behind. Why remove his license? Was it stolen for identity use, or discarded deliberately to avoid detection? Perhaps by hands that had just silenced him forever. And how did the wallet get across town in the first place? Someone may have intercepted Dan while he was vulnerable, stranded without his phone or money. Yet, no one has ever come forward with a confirmed sighting or a lead that directly points to who that person could have been. The second theory is misadventure. Dan was in Missoula without resources. No vehicle, no phone, no wallet, and limited cash, if any at all. People in that position often rely on the kindness of strangers, but it also leaves them exposed. Could he have wandered off course, collapsed from a medical issue, or had been injured in an accident in a less traveled area? Missoula is a city bordered by wooded trails, riverbanks, and isolated corridors. It's possible something happened that left him unable to call for help, and in those environments, a person can go unnoticed far longer than most realize. A third theory that has been raised is voluntary disappearance. Did Dan simply choose to walk away from his life? While some missing persons cases fit that pattern, Dan's doesn't align well. He was actively working with Amy to get home. He had a daughter's wedding just days away, a milestone he had been talking about. The urgency in his calls suggests a determination to return, not a plan to vanish. For a man described as responsible and connected to his family, the idea that he would willingly abandon everything at such a pivotal time seems unlikely. And then there's the Poverello Center gap. Dan told Amy that's where he was heading. Reports often say he was, quote, last seen or, quote, last heard from near that area, but no public confirmation has ever surfaced about whether he actually made it inside. Did anyone see him there? Did someone outside notice him? That absence of clarity is one of the most frustrating aspects of this case. But what if the truth lies in the one place no one's looked twice, the shadows just beyond the Poverello Center's doors? Each theory points in a different direction, but none bring closure. Was Dan the victim of foul play on the streets of Missoula? Did a simple misfortune spiral out of control? Or is there still someone out there who knows exactly what happened, holding that piece that could finally connect the trail of clues? For Daniel O'Neill Baker's loved ones, the silence since June 2021 has been devastating. His daughter, who waited for him on her wedding day, carries the memory of his absence. Amy, who spoke with him in those final calls, remembers the sound of his voice breaking off mid-sentence, followed by nothing but silence. And his family in Helena still wakes each day with the same question. What happened between Potomac and Missoula that caused Dan to vanish? The distance between those two places is barely 20 miles, yet within that short stretch of highway and city streets, a man with every reason to come home simply disappeared. His motorcycle left behind, his phone gone, his wallet turning up in a bush with the license missing. Each clue adds to the strangeness, but none lead to a resolution. Someone, somewhere, saw something. Maybe it was at the Poverello Center. Maybe it was near the University of Montana campus. Or maybe it was along Highway 200 where his motorcycle was left behind. Even the smallest detail could make the difference. As I wrap up Dan's story, it hits me hard. In the shadow of Missoula's streets, one man vanished, but his echo lingers in every unanswered question, from that last frantic call to the endless quiet that followed. Dan's disappearance isn't just a cold case. It's a call to all of us, whispering that truth hides in the details we might have overlooked. And what about you? Have you ever chased a ghost from your own past? A lost connection? A nagging what if? And found it reshaped everything? Or does Dan's story stir up thoughts on how we as a community can bridge the gaps justice leaves behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might spark the light someone needs. If this one kept you up, hit the like button, please, and subscribe to Odd Mystery Stories for more weekly unravelings of the unexplained, and click that notification bell. I've got plenty more mysteries ahead. Hey, before you go, a quick word from the heart. Stories like these, like Dan's, remind me of my own late nights wondering about the unfindables in life. They don't just haunt, they harden us, turning what happened into what can we do next. If you've got a tip, no matter how small, reach out to the Missoula Police Department at 406-552-6300. Dan's family is still holding out hope, that fragile thread of hope, that your tip could be the answers that they're seeking. Thanks for walking this shadowed path with me today, my friends. I'm Vince, and if Dan's unresolved journey moved you, then know what the algorithm gods seek. Click that like button. Subscribe if you're new here so the next twist lands right in your feed. And check out these recommendations, stories popping up on your screen now. They're the gateway to more mysteries, more echoes, more chances to connect the dots. Until we meet again, hold on to hope. The truth, it's often just one shared story away. See you in the next mystery.